Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Sage Intacct Construction, and I'm going to go through a few slides and then I'm going to share my screen. We'll talk about all the different features and benefits that you can look forward to. And today is going to be a broad stroke, and if you want to have a deeper dive, happy to have an offline conversation and chat with you more to learn about your processes. Let's go ahead and get started. First off, an introduction to Action Associates. We are a value-added reseller, so a VAR that resells Sage Intacct. And so our team is equipped with sales and implementations and support to help you along your journey. We're over 250 employees with nearly 7,000 customers. Right, we've been doing this for a long time. We have got a deep bench of experience, especially with Sage Intacct Construction. So, you're not looking at just a generic ERP platform or ERP company. We really do specialize with construction. Here's just a few of the recognitions that we've received so far. When we take a look at some of the common challenges that construction companies face, we'll start with financial blind spots, right? So from a job costing perspective, if you're not able to tag things to a particular cost code and determine, your profitability, it's going to be really difficult, right? We find a lot of folks that come to us maybe using spreadsheets, which is definitely doable, but it becomes a time versus a resource perspective. So it can have, project delays or erode at margins if your overhead costs become too much. In addition, some workforce efficiencies, right? So if you want to overcome complex business problems and processes with Excel or manually on paper, you could do that, but it could affect your billing, retention, allocations, procurement, job costing, and payroll with an added administrative burden, right? So you may be using a lot of different systems that are or aren't connected, and you can have a little bit greater risk with some of those, right? You don't want errors in your work because then you have to redo it. In addition, you may have, insufficient capabilities or integrations, right? Sometimes we hear that, this integrates with that and it totally works, but maybe it doesn't, or it breaks, or you're having issues with it, or it doesn't work exactly how you're expecting it to. So you have to come up with workarounds on the administrative side, and it just creates more time. And then long-term effects, you can have stunted growth, right? So if you're not able to take on an extra job because you're doing too many administrative functions, then you've lost that money, and it becomes an opportunity cost. So again, some of the challenges that we see our customers facing. We'll introduce Sage Intacct Construction, right? So unmatched construction financial depth. This is a best in breed, best in class financial ERP system. We've got thousands of people using it across the world. It's a complete end-to-end solution for construction. There are some additional add-ons that you can use, like Sage Construction Management, Sage Estimating, etc. It is true native to the cloud, right? So you're not logging in through a remote desktop or anything like that. You'll log in through your web browser as if you were to log into any other website. And then we do have, deep bench leadership in construction, understanding. We've implemented plenty of clients before. Everyone's a snowflake, and so we want to get to know you better, but we can bring some best practices to the table to help with that. All right. So this is going to be Sage for Construction. We do have 300 CRE, 100 contractor, and Sage Intacct. These are all of our partners, and there's more, right? This is just a sampling from the pre-construction side, construction financials, operations, and payroll. There's a lot of options, right? So because Sage Intacct is your core financial system, you may need some help from a project management perspective, or an estimating perspective, or a AP automation perspective. So having those be able to connect into Sage Intacct is going to give you a very helpful and unique to you solution. All right, a couple things to highlight here from a financial management lens. Sage Intacct offers what you're looking at, the project performance dashboard, right? So you have performance cards, as well as you're pulling in reports that are out of the box and customized so that you can have single views and access to your data where and when you want it, right? And how you want it as well. So this is an upgrade from some of the other Sage products. Sage Intacct, and I'll show this to you in the demo, has a lot of flexibility when it comes to reports and dashboards to give you financial insights. Okay. When we talk about Sage Intacct, one of the biggest upgrades is our approach to the chart of accounts, and you'll hear this word often. It's called dimensions. Right? So when we think about a legacy approach, we've got your primary account. Right? So the example here is 1,500 equipment, and then you have your additional segments. So location, department, project. If you've got 3 different locations, 5 departments, and 5 projects, you could have 75 account code combinations, right? So 1500-001-100-001, all the way down. So as transactions come through the system and you're tagging things appropriately, you've got a big drop-down list, and your chart of accounts is vast. It's very big. There's a lot going on. What we've done with Sage Intacct is added this idea of dimensional reporting, right? And so this idea is now we are keeping a concise chart of accounts. So it's just the account number, and then location, department, vendor becomes a tag, right? So then you can use that in the reporting to drill down and splice and dice the data based on these dimensions rather than having a large chart of accounts, right? There's some standard out of the box, but then you can also use your own dimensions as well. Okay, so let's get to part 1 of our demo. We'll talk about reporting, dashboards, multi-entity consolidations, and some dimensional general ledger items. I've got a couple different screens, so if I'm looking off to the side, that's what's going on. But we will go ahead and get started. Here we go. Share screen. Okay. Awesome. Share. Okay. Should be able to see my screen now. I believe it has popped up. Okay, awesome. What I pulled up here, I have logged in as a super user. So I've got all the different drop-down options within my demo environment. I've logged in through just a web browser. This is Microsoft Edge. We are an AWS and Microsoft shop. So that's where we're going to host this on the Sage platform. When you log in, you'll have different user preferences. I've had this performance dashboard as my preference. I've taken it and customized it to see performance cards, right? So I've got my project revenue, project costs, profit margin, etc. As I scroll down, I've created these different tiles. I can move them if I want. So if I wanted to bring this up, I could do that. These are all going to be dynamic, right? What does that mean necessarily? Well, here at the very top right-hand corner, I've got a date picker. So this is my as of date. If I wanted to change this to see maybe like a previous month, I could do that. February 2023, and then press apply. And then all of this is going to automatically, dynamically recast, and I can change that information, right? What does this mean? It means instead of having to necessarily run reports off the bat, I can use this dashboard that has dynamic information. We'll go back to March, apply. I can change the different locations that I have in the system, as well as if I wanted to see specific project groups. I've created my own project group for Todd's projects. And so it's going to show those to me here. So if you have different users or different project managers that want to see just their information, you can have those filters so that it makes sense and is meaningful and impactful for them. Right? What we'll see here on this dashboard are a few things. The first thing that I'll note is you'll see different colored text. Anything that's blue is going to be a drill down option. So you can click into it and it's going to show you more. More on that in just a little bit. As we continue to scroll, you'll see I've added some graphs, right? So I've got my revenue by project for my project group. I've got my contract original versus actual for project income, as well as actual versus budget on a P&L statement. In addition, you'll notice I've got this tile for what we call Intacct Collaborate. Intacct Collaborate is a really cool function where it's internal messaging, right? So you'll see somebody commented at Todd Goldfarb, please take a look at this, right? This references an AP bill. It sends an email to the user to say, hey, you've been tagged on this particular transaction or anything in the system. In that email, they can click a link and it takes you right there, right? What that does is it saves us some time. Instead of having to go log in and hunt around and go through the application menu and try to find different things from a time period, Now we're just clicking links, right? You can tag people, you can add a file or a snapshot, etc. As we build out together during implementation the meaningful dashboards for you, we'll figure out, oh, okay, well, you want to have broken down your profitability by restaurants. Okay, so I've added the different restaurants as my columns, and then my revenue with the cost of sales for materials, labor, equipment as our rows, right? So what this means is we're utilizing those dimensions to splice and dice the data. Well, maybe I want to see a project overview by job type. So we've got restaurants, retail, and warehouses all within this. And again, it's dynamic. As people are making updates across the room or across the office, I'm going to see those updates in real time. I can do the same here with our project overview by PM. So I've got, for my 5 projects I've selected, our PM Doug and our PM Michael, and their subtotals as well as their information. Now, as we think about these dashboards, there's other dashboards that we created. I've got my favorites here on the left-hand side, as there's many places in the system I can operate from. But if I wanted to go to a controller dashboard, I could see a little bit more of a financial view, operating expenses, revenue, AR, and AP. If I wanted to see, got a balance sheet, a P&L as well. Okay, great. So we'll highlight just here, I've got 3 favorites. I can also have different bookmarks. So if I wanted to see different project lists, there's a lot of shortcuts and ways to have the system work for you so that you're working smarter, not harder. Okay. We also have this global search bar in the top right-hand corner. What's really helpful here is as you're doing an investigation, maybe I'm looking for a bill, an AP bill for $3,000, okay? I can go ahead and query the entire database. I'm telling it's a bill, so it runs a little bit faster. But as we look at our search results, I can see, okay, I was looking for architects, experts, Northwest, right? This searched and found it was a bill for $3,000, but it also found $30,000 just because I typed in 3000. As we look for this, this is blue or green text, so we can click it. We can drill into this, and it's going to open up a new tab and show me more information. We'll just let it load for just a second. So I've clicked into that bill. It opened up that new tab because it knows I may want to go back and maybe click on something else here. But in this new tab, it's showing me the bill, bill number, bill ID. It's got a preview of the bill on the right-hand side. Here's the invoice, and then all the information that's been filled out for this. Now, we want to investigate. It says it's been paid $3,000 from July 1st, 2022. If we investigate this a little bit more, it was a printed check. Okay, that check number was, let's see, 10260. Okay, as we continue to follow the path of information, we can see this check is still in transit and never cleared the bank, right? So now we have an option to void this check. Okay, now we can void the payment. So all that to say is we've done an investigation through the search function. I've never actually gone into a specific application. The ease of use is clear that I've got a couple different ways to find the information that I'm looking for. Going back to that dashboard that I showed you for project performance, I'll just let it load for just a sec. When we go to this dashboard, I can use these drill down options. Same thing, Quick Bowls Portland project. If I click on this total cost, it's going to pull up this modal right here. And I can look for that same bill. I remember it was from July 1st, 2022 for $3,000. When I click it, it's going to pull up that same information, right? So what we're doing is we're finding the investigation process is now based on how I like to work, right? I did the search function. I've done a drill down through a dashboard. If I wanted to, I could also find that information by going into accounts payable, right? And seeing the bills within the bill register. So we've just started the demo. We're 15 minutes in. I haven't even shown you the actual home screen when you go in to log in. We just started with dashboards because this is what's meaningful for me and impactful so that I can get my daily tasks done. every user is going to be able to have user preferences and be able to really customize their own experience so that when you log in, you're not forced one specific way. It really works how you work. Now, what we'll do is we'll go and talk a little bit about Sage Intacct in general. So here's our home screen. A couple things to highlight here is our release notes. There are 4 major releases every year. You don't have to schedule your upgrade. You're not working on a version. You don't even need to worry about what version you are on because that's what Sage is going to do for us. You can stay up to date on the different releases. You can see in 2026, here's our release schedule for next year. Usually the releases happen overnight, so it doesn't mess up anything that you guys are working on. And then it's got all sorts of information, financials, construction, different industries, training, all included. There's a release video as well as feature descriptions so that you're never in the dark on what's coming out and what could be affecting you in the future when it comes to Sage Intacct. Right? We find a lot of our clients get frustrated because they have to manage from a support perspective all of the different versions, and if they have integrations, that things may or may not work exactly how they want it to, and they're trying to get month-end close. It becomes a headache. Okay. When we talk about integrations and our marketplace partners, there is a Sage Intacct marketplace. And so what that means is these are all of our tried and tested construction and real estate partners. There's a lot on here that you can see, and this is just a link that anybody can use to find what is going to work with Sage Intacct and with those releases. So what's really helpful is when those releases happen, all of these connectors are tried and tested, and they will not break on these new releases. So if you're using Busy or a MITRE or a Procore, all of those are going to be working for you all the time. Very good. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a few other things when we go into our reports. There are a lot of out-of-the-box reports. So within the report center, we can see, here, I'll just let it load. Excellent. All of our financial reports, balance sheet, cash balance, P&Ls, project overviews, cash management, general ledger reports, AP reports, AR reports. Why am I showing you all of this? Well, there's a lot out of the box. People ask me all the time. They say, well, I want to create my reports. I say, well, send me your reports. We probably have something similar, or our consultants have already made something maybe for another client that's very similar too. So you don't have to really dive deep and dig in. Now, if there's something that you really want to, that's totally an option. The report writer is there for us to use. But what's really cool is I'll show you commitment. Yeah, let's run this one. So this is what we call an interactive custom report, where it's going to run the report dynamically, show you the information, and then give you some options to make some modifications right here in the window. So as it's coming up, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, it will be our projects, right? So here's our project Quickball Portland, and then our cost code concrete, and then our cost type equipment, and then vendor. But you say, Todd, I've got a couple Larson insulation vendors. I want it to be grouped by that. We are able to take this column header and move it to the front, and it's going to recast this report so that then it's grouped first by vendor, right? So what Intacct is doing is utilizing the dynamic reporting capabilities so that you're not necessarily having to build reports. You're using what's already there and what's out there. From here, you can process these reports, you can email them out, you can schedule reports so that it shows up every week in your email inbox. You can also export everything to Excel and manipulate it that way. So there's a lot of out-of-the-box reports. If you're on Sage 300, very easy, much easier than Crystal reports. I'll even show you, we'll create a report, call a data set and some filters and dimensions here at the end of the presentation today. Okay, when we talk about dimensions, just to kind of give you a quick preview, let's go into our general ledger. When we pull up just a general ledger account, you'll notice within the chart of accounts, general ledger accounts, any transactions that we pull up, there is going to be a spot for dimensions, right? So these are required dimensions. I've only required location, but these are all the different tags within the system that you're going to be able to use, right? So just to illustrate, we have this dimensional capability, and it's going to be a real game changer for you as you come into Intacct. All right, I'm going to stop sharing real quick. We'll go back into our slides and see what is what. Claire, we're about halfway through. Wanted to check in with you if there's anything on the question front.
Sure. Yeah, there is one. I can push it to the screen if you'd like, and then that way people can actually see what it says.
Okay.
But it says, are you able to establish a direct query connection that provides access to the underlying system data tables similar to the functionality available through Sage 300?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's a couple different options there, and we can talk offline as well. The answer is yes. So you would have access to it, if you need a developer license. We've also seen some of our clients use Focus, which is like an analytics tool, action analytics, where you'd be able to create some of those custom dashboards. There's also some other tools like Felixo that can create that connection where you have read-write capabilities within Excel. If you wanted to do, other kind of data manipulation in that arena. So there's a few different options there, but great question.
Yeah, I think that should be it for right now. I'll keep an eye on the chat for a future, but you can you can proceed.
Appreciate it. All right. Okay, so for part 2 of our webinar, we're going to double click into some more of the project-based side, the construction side. So Sage Intacct, #1 construction-based ERP software. It's the only preferred provider of the AI CPA. It's a top product. Here's a bunch of our awards. Pretty cool stuff. This is tried and true, proven software for construction. A few things to note from financial software. This is really your core ERP platform, showing your profitability, job costing, budgeting, planning, compliance, billing and subcontractor payments, as well as multi-entity consolidations. I'll show you the automated WIP process. Here's kind of a quick screenshot of it. You'll be able to input your PMs and your CFO forecast amount to cost to complete and percentages within the system and go from there. All right, let's get started. So this is going to be part 2 of our demo. We'll talk about job costing and billing, vendor compliance, WIP reporting, among a few other items, and then we'll let you go for today. Again, this is a broad stroke webinar. I just want to show you high level, a lot of different things, so that if something piques your interest, reach out to us. We're happy to have a deeper dive conversation. There's so much more to the platform, and then I want to make sure that we do it justice. Okay, let's go ahead and share my screen. Great. I'll give it a second and pull it up. Okay. So one thing I'll mention here is we do have multi-entity. So right now we're looking at the top level. So if I do this drop down here, I've got top level in red, and then I have all my different entities and locations within here. So if I wanted to go to Timberline GC, which is where a lot of my demo data is going to live, I can click that. It's going to open up a new tab and also show this kind of color bar at the top, right? This is a visual indicator. Make sure you're working in the right entity. Sometimes if you're in the wrong entity and you do a transaction, you're like, oh, I need to switch entities. That's why we have this visual indicator here, so that you're always in the right spot. When we have our drop down, this applications view, this is going to show what you have from a permissions and visibility perspective, right? So right now I'm a super user in my demo environment, but if I was an AP clerk, then I would have access to accounts payable and maybe reports and maybe projects, but I wouldn't have access to some of the others, like, company-wide settings and things like that. As we go into projects, here's our project view. A couple of cool things to note. Within Sage Intacct, we can have parent-child relationships within our projects. Right? What does that mean? So we've got Sumner Warehouse Distribution Centers, Building 1 and Building 2. We can go, as far down great grandchild relationships, whatever makes the most sense for your business is what we'd be able to do for you. As we click into a project here, it's going to show you all of the project information. Now, you may be saying, well, I use Procore, I use Sage Construction Management, other systems. Those will integrate into Sage Intacct so that this can be your single source of truth from a financial and accounting perspective. But from a PM perspective, if you want to do routing and approvals and things like that, that could be in an external system as well. And that's where your PM team could be operating from. There's a lot of information that's housed in the system. I'll highlight here, we've got our dimensions as well. So different location, department, class, etc. Within the project, you can have different custom fields. I added a square footage custom field. It took me about 5 minutes. So as our implementation team works with you, we'll start to learn your processes and learn what's impactful and meaningful for you so that we can build the system together so that it makes sense. In addition, I added another custom field for like a warranty expiration. If we wanted to put this project in warranty status, we could do that. There's a project summary tab. So this is going to have your total project information, financial summary, project projections, billable hours, things like that. We've got our cost codes. So cost codes are going to be, paramount throughout the system. These cost codes are the ones that are relevant for this specific project. Again, whatever cost codes you guys use, the system can use those too. It's very flexible. In addition, we'll house estimates within the system. You can have multiple estimates. You can designate which one's going to be the primary, and it's going to show all that line level detail when we go in and edit one. Scroll down. Here's all of our estimate entries, right? So you've got your effective date, cost code, cost type, item, quantity, amount, memo, all the way down. So, whether you're using this to do your estimates or another platform, all the information is going to be stored in here, as well as your purchasing commitments. So we're going to house your subcontracts as well as your purchase orders right here within the system. And then from a change management perspective, we'll house your change requests, and those can flow into change orders, which will then affect the project contracts itself. We can have a many-to-one relationship for our change requests into project change orders as well. And then again, lastly, here's our project contracts with our project contract lines and SOV values. Again, there's a lot here within the system that you would have access to. This is just overall project information. Within the projects area, we do have our WIP schedules, so we'll go into that next. When we pull up our WIP schedules, this is going to house this information on a monthly basis. All of our different projects are going to be our different rows here, and as we scroll across, we're able to make edits to this. What parts can we edit? Well, from a PM forecast cost at completion and forecast percent complete, we can have our PM values as well as our CFO values. We've got calculated values, our estimated cost to date, total contract value, job cost, or job to date costs, as well as billings. Then we've got our inputted values. So instead of 95%, maybe this is 98%. Then as we click it, it's going to recast and change the values. It's got some rounding errors. And then we can also have our CFO add in the forecast cost at completion, as well as the forecast contract value. So having all of that comes into the calculator so that you have your job to date overbilling and your job to date underbilling. This is a right out of the box WIP scheduling management tool to help you with some of those forecasting questions. Again, would love to get to know you guys a little bit more and some of the challenges that you're facing, and maybe we can work together to see if it makes sense, to do a follow-up and go from there. So this will show you your WIP scheduling. We get a lot of questions about billing, right? So from a invoices perspective, we do have our AIA type billing that we support. So you can do a progress bill, you can do a T&M bill. All of our reports and invoices utilize Word document templates, right? So here is an example of our AIA type bill that you would typically see, if you were going to do the progress billing. All of these can be customized. You can see I added our action logo here, but we would add your logo, and then all of this information is either static text or it's going to be data fields that are called from within the platform. right? So we would work together to make sure you have proper invoices, payment notifications, etc. These can be printed or emailed out of the system. We also have routing that you can have for bill approval processes, as well as vendor approvals as well. When we talk a little bit about vendor compliance, this can be your main hub for lien waivers and certificates of insurance. So if we wanted to find a lien waiver, we'd be able to go in here and see here's a lien waiver for one of our companies. One of our subcontracts looks like plumbing and irrigation. We also have validations so that we're not paying bills to folks who don't have an up-to-date lien waiver. If it's expired, we can say, hey, have the system give me a warning, right? This is part of our smart events and smart rules that are built into the system that we can then customize, right? There's a ton of different use cases that we can work through, and happy to show you a little bit more of that if it's of interest to you. Now, last couple areas of interest that I'll highlight here on our webinar today. When we talk about cash management, there's two ways that cash works here. When we're talking about transactions that come in, when a cash management account is created, we can use what we call the banking cloud, right? So what does that mean? I've got my checking account here. When I pull this up, I've connected the banking cloud, so all the transactions that flow through this specific bank account will flow into Sage Intacct. So I can do a reconciliation of all of the items that flow into Sage Intacct versus what's in Sage Intacct. We can do triple threat matching with matching the value of the transaction, the vendor, the date, and if all of those matching rules are correct, then it will match the transaction. Any transactions that may have happened in the bank but didn't get recorded in Intacct, you'd be able to see that kind of fall out and work through, oh, okay, what was this transaction? Oh, we need to add this into Sage Intacct. No problem. This is super secure. The information flows through Plaid, which is a third-party application. It connects with all major banks, and we would be able to test with your bank to make sure that it does check out okay. From a payments perspective, you can print checks from within the system, so you wouldn't need a tool like PrintBoss. You can also create a NACHA or ACH file, right? So when you're finished all your payment approvals within the system will create a CSV file that you would then upload to the bank to make those payments on your behalf, right? So that's kind of the two-step process. Create all the payments, all the payment workflows from an AP perspective, approve all the bills, and record the payments out of specific accounts. And then it would create that file. You would log into the bank and make those ACH payments from there. All right. The last thing I'll show us for today is back in our report center. If we wanted to create, oops, I'm just going to quickly go over here. If we wanted to quickly create a financial report, I just want to illustrate, what that's going to look like for us when we create a new one. So we will just make a quick P&L. As we go into our rows, we'll select our account groups, add in our net income. There it is. We'll add in our filters here, just some locations. And then we will add in our date. We'll go back into 2023. And when we preview this report, this is going to show us our P&L for this specific data project costs. And we have the ability to print, email, or use Excel to export this. And just to show you the power of dimensions, when I go back to my report writer, I have a few different options here, right? So I can blast out our project costs. So maybe I want to see our project costs by a specific dimension, right? And so that could be maybe our individual project. So we've done that. We'll add our different columns. So as we go into our columns and expand the columns, maybe by department that are within the system, I can set that. And then when we preview this report, now we've expanded the columns with different departments. We've expanded our project costs by different rows so we can see all of the line level with subtotals. So, from a report writer, it's as simple as over the past 2 minutes, we've called a data set, we've added different dimensions that are already set up within the system. So it just highlights, how important it is as we work together through implementation to capture all those details so that when you're ready to report, it's not a chore and that you're able to really splice and dice the data so that it works for you. There's a lot of really cool things coming with Sage Intacct. From an AI perspective, there's variance analysis. There's going to be a close assistant. Well, there is a close assistant that helps with unposted transactions in the AP, AR, and GL subledgers. It's going to help with your bank reconciliation within cash management to show you some outlier detections as well as eliminating manual recon. It's going to have more reports, notifications, and visibility, so you have higher collaboration and use of templates and notifications. So there's a lot to come here in the next year. So, absolutely encourage you to dive in and learn more about what's coming with Sage Intacct.